She deleted the dating app for the 14th time, not because she found someone, but because the last man she matched with asked if she'd be willing to split the check, then spent 45 minutes talking about his cryptocurrency portfolio and his ex-wife's mental issues. She's 43, successful, owns a home outright, runs a team of 12 people at work, and hasn't had a second date in 8 months. Her married friends keep telling her she's too picky. Her single friends have stopped talking about dating altogether because it's too depressing, and somewhere between her morning coffee and her evening glass of wine, she started wondering if this is just her life now alone, not by choice, but by some invisible force she can't quite name. If that scene feels familiar to you or someone you know, what I'm about to share will explain exactly why this is happening on a massive scale. And it has almost nothing to do with being too picky. This is Relationship Mind, where we have the raw, unfiltered conversations about love, dating, and connection that everyone thinks but nobody says. No judgment here, just truth and a genuine desire to help you figure this out. You've probably heard the usual explanations. Women over 40 are single because they focus too much on careers, they waited too long, they have baggage, they're set in their ways. Men their age want younger women, the dating pool shrinks. Some of that contains fragments of truth, but it's not the real story, it's the lazy story. The story people tell because it's simple and it doesn't require anyone to think too deeply. The real story is far more complex, far more interesting, and honestly far more hopeful once you understand it. Because when you see what's actually happening, you can start making different choices. So, let me walk you through the 4 hidden dynamics that nobody discusses, but almost every woman over 40 experiences in the dating world. And if you stick with me until the end, I'll share the specific mindset shift that women who do find lasting love in their 40s have in common. Let me introduce you to Diane. She's 47, divorced for 6 years, 2 kids in high school. For 2 decades, Diane's identity was wrapped up in being someone's wife and someone's mother. She organized her entire existence around her family's needs. What she wanted for dinner didn't matter. What she watched on TV didn't matter. Her opinions, preferences, and desires got buried under layers of compromise and caretaking. Then the marriage ended, and for the first time since her early 20s, Diane had to figure out who she actually was as an individual. Here's what most people completely overlook about this situation. Diane spent her 30s and most of her 40s not developing a relationship with herself. She doesn't know what music she likes anymore. She doesn't know what kind of vacation excites her. She doesn't know what she actually believes about politics or religion or life because she spent so long accommodating someone else's views. Now she's supposed to show up on a date and present herself as a fully formed, interesting person. She doesn't even know that person yet. This creates a strange paradox. The same women who seem like they should be the best partners, the nurturing ones, the ones who devoted themselves completely to family, often struggle the most when re-entering dating. Not because something is wrong with them, but because they haven't had the space to become themselves. Meanwhile, women who maintain stronger individual identities throughout marriage often transition into dating more smoothly. They know their preferences, they have opinions, they can articulate what they want because they never stopped wanting things. Consider this. How can you choose the right partner if you don't truly know yourself yet? How can someone fall in love with you if you're still excavating who you actually is? How do you apply this? If you've spent years defined primarily by your roles, wife, mother, caretaker, you need to invest time in rediscovering yourself before dating seriously. Not as a delay tactic, but as necessary groundwork. Start small. What books do you actually enjoy? What causes make you angry? What would you do on a perfect Saturday with 0 obligations? Journal these discoveries. Let yourself have preferences again without guilt. This isn't selfish, it's essential. You can't offer someone a relationship with you if you haven't reconnected with who you are first. Now, watch how this connects to something that seems completely separate. At 25, dating operates on one set of criteria: physical attraction, chemistry, excitement. Does he make you laugh? Does your heart race when he texts? The screening process is almost entirely emotional and chemical. At 45, something fundamental has shifted, and this shift catches many women off guard because nobody prepared them for it. A woman named Kesha explained it to me perfectly. She said, "When I was young, I chose men based on how they made me feel. Now I evaluate men based on how they actually behave." Sit with that for a moment. 20 years of experience, possibly including a painful divorce, definitely including the observation of countless relationships around her, has transformed how Kesha evaluates potential partners. She's not just feeling anymore, she's analyzing, she's pattern matching, she's doing threat assessment based on accumulated data. This is actually a sign of wisdom and growth. But here's the hidden cost nobody mentions. This heightened screening often happens unconsciously and can become excessive. Kesha finds herself eliminating men for things that wouldn't have registered when she was younger. He mentioned his mother 3 times at dinner. Red flag. Probably ensued. He drives a flashy car. Red flag. Possibly insecure and bad with money. He was extremely charming. Red flag. Could be love bombing like her ex did. See the problem? Her screening system has become so sophisticated that it generates false positives constantly. Real threats and imaginary threats start looking identical. A genuinely enthusiastic man looks like a desperate one. A confident man looks like an arrogant one. A man who's cautious because he's also been hurt looks like someone who's emotionally unavailable. This isn't paranoia, it's protection. Her brain built these defenses for good reason. They kept her from repeating painful mistakes, but protection and connection exist in tension with each other. The walls that keep danger out also keep love out, and by 40, those walls have often become sophisticated fortresses with multiple checkpoints, ID verification, and suspicious guards questioning every visitor. How do you apply this? Recognize that your screening system exists and probably runs automatically. Start noticing when you eliminate someone, write down the reason, then challenge it. Is this a genuine deal breaker based on your values, or is this a defensive pattern triggered by past pain? There's a difference between wisdom and wound. Wisdom says, I need someone who communicates directly because passive aggression destroys me. Wound says he took 2 hours to text back, so he's probably not interested and I should protect myself. One is a legitimate standard, the other is fear wearing a disguise. Here's something that shifts the picture even further. Picture your social world at 28. You probably had coworkers you grabbed drinks with, friends from college you still saw regularly, maybe a roommate, parties, gatherings, weddings every month during summer. Your exposure to new people happened automatically, constantly, without any effort on your part. Potential romantic connections simply appeared in the natural flow of life. Now picture that same world at 44. For many women, the social landscape has contracted dramatically. Coworkers are mostly virtual now or kept at professional distance. Old friends have scattered across different cities and life stages. Social gatherings have become rare dinner parties with the same 6 people. Weddings have transformed into their children's weddings where everyone is already married. The part nobody mentions is this: the infrastructure for meeting people basically disappears. It's not that there aren't single men over 40 out there. There are millions of them. The problem is geometric. How do your paths cross when neither of you goes anywhere that facilitates crossing paths? A woman named Teresa described this perfectly. She said, I could go weeks without meeting a single new man, not one. My world has become so small. And when you combine a shrinking world with dating apps that feel dehumanizing and ineffective for many women over 40, you get a perfect storm of isolation masquerading as preference. Here's the reality. Many women over 40 aren't single because they rejected dozens of suitors. They're single because they genuinely have not met anyone worth considering in months or even years. The pool they're supposedly being too picky about barely exists in their daily lives. How do you apply this? You have to aggressively, intentionally expand your world. This sounds obvious, but most people don't do it with any consistency. Join things not with the explicit goal of meeting men, but to genuinely enlarge your social ecosystem. A cooking class, a hiking group, a volunteer organization, a book club, a language exchange, a pickleball league, anything that puts you in repeated contact with new humans. Repeated is the key word. One-time events don't build connections. Regular attendance at ongoing activities creates the conditions for genuine relationships of all kinds to develop. Some of those relationships may introduce you to someone, or you might meet someone directly. Either way, your world has to get bigger, or probability simply isn't on your side. Now, let me show you the dynamic that ties all of this together. This one is uncomfortable to discuss, but it might be the most important. By the time you reach your 40s, you've accumulated experiences, many of them painful, heartbreak, betrayal, perhaps disappointment, certainly maybe divorce, maybe the slow death of a relationship that should have ended years before it did. These experiences don't just disappear. They live in your nervous system. They shape your expectations. They filter how you interpret everything that happens. I call this emotional archaeology because every new dating experience gets interpreted through layers and layers of accumulated history. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. A man named Robert asks Linda, who's 46, out for dinner. During the meal, Robert gets a text and glances at his phone briefly before putting it away. A simple, almost unconscious action. But here's what happens in Linda's mind in that split second. Her ex-husband used to check his phone constantly, and it turned out he was texting the woman he eventually left her for. Her brain trying to protect her pattern matches instantly. Phone checking equals potential infidelity, equals danger, equals guard up. Robert has done absolutely nothing wrong, but he's now being filtered through 15 years of accumulated pain from a completely different man. Linda doesn't even realize she's doing this. She just notices that something about Robert feels off to her. She probably won't go on a second date, and she'll tell her friends that there just wasn't a connection. The connection was blocked before it had a chance to form. Now multiply this by hundreds of tiny moments across dozens of dating experiences, each interpretation filtered through layers of old pain, each new person paying for the crimes of previous ones. This isn't fair to the new people, and honestly, it isn't fair to Linda either. She deserves a fresh start with each person she meets, but her nervous system hasn't gotten that memo. How do you apply this? This requires ongoing inner work, and there's no shortcut. Consider working with a therapist who specializes in relationship patterns if you haven't already. Start noticing when you have a strong negative reaction to something small and ask yourself, is this really about him or is this an old echo? Practice what some therapists call beginner's mind, consciously approaching each date as if you have no history, no preconceptions, no accumulated evidence about how men behave. This is hard, really hard. Your protective systems will resist it, but it's the only way to give genuine connection a fair chance. So, we've covered the identity paradox, the screening evolution, the shrinking world, and the emotional archaeology effect. Four distinct dynamics that compound and interweave to create the experience millions of women over 40 are living right now. But remember, I promise to share what women who do find lasting love in their 40s have in common. After talking to dozens of women who met their partners after 40, a clear pattern emerged. And it's probably not what you expect. It wasn't that they lowered their standards. It wasn't that they got lucky. It wasn't that they were prettier or thinner or more successful than women who stayed single. The common thread was this: they got radically honest with themselves about the gap between what they said they wanted and how they were actually showing up. A woman named Grace put it this way. She said, I kept saying I wanted a deep, intimate connection, but I was showing up to dates with armor 3 in thick. I was testing men instead of actually getting to know them. I was looking for reasons to leave instead of reasons to stay. Once I saw that contradiction, everything changed. Think about the four dynamics we discussed. Each one creates a contradiction between stated desires and actual behavior. You say you want love, but haven't reintroduced yourself to who you truly are. You say you want connection, but your screening system rejects everyone. You say the pool is empty, but you haven't expanded your world. You say you're over your past, but it's interpreting your present. The women who break through these dynamics do the hard internal work required to close these gaps. They invest in self-discovery. They learn to distinguish wisdom from wound. They actively expand their social worlds. They process their history so those histories stop running the show. This doesn't guarantee they'll find someone. Nothing can guarantee that. Life doesn't work that way, but it dramatically increases the odds. and more importantly, it makes them happier whether they partner up or not. Here's something I want to leave you with, especially if any of this hit close to home. Being single in your 40s is not a verdict on your worth. It's not proof that you failed at some fundamental life task. The forces shaping this reality are structural and cultural and psychological in ways that have nothing to do with your value as a human being. But you're also not helpless. You have more agency than it sometimes feels like you have. You can rebuild your identity, you can update your screening system, you can expand your contracted world, you can excavate your emotional archaeology. None of this is easy. Some of it requires professional support, all of it requires honesty, patience, and self compassion. But sitting across from you somewhere in this vast world is probably someone who'd be grateful to find you, someone who's also been through things, someone who's also healing, someone who's also looking for genuine connection in an age that makes connection surprisingly hard. Your job isn't to be perfect or to have everything figured out. Your job is to become as available as possible emotionally and practically for that meeting to happen. And if you needed permission to start that work today, consider this your permission.